I thought I had left my singing days behind me when I retired from teaching, but when my family mocked my voice during our annual Christmas caroling tradition, I was heartbroken. Little did they know that my old choir had a surprise in store for all of us. That fateful Christmas Eve, as I stood on my doorstep, feeling the weight of my family's cruel words, I never could have imagined the incredible gift that was about to arrive. A gift that would remind me of the power of music, the strength of friendship, and the true meaning of the holiday spirit. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The crisp December air nipped at my nose as I stepped out onto my front porch, the warmth of my home fading behind me. In my hands, I clutched a well-worn songbook, its pages yellowed and curled with age. It had been a gift from my students when I first started teaching music at the local high school, and it had been my constant companion ever since. But now, as I looked out at the faces of my family gathered before me, I felt a sense of trepidation washing over me. It was Christmas Eve, and as per our annual tradition, we were about to embark on our neighborhood caroling route. I had always loved this tradition, loved the way the music seemed to bring everyone together, bridging the gaps between generations and filling the air with a sense of joy and togetherness. But this year, something felt different. Maybe it was the way my grandson Jake rolled his eyes when I suggested we start with Silent Night, or the way my daughter Emily seemed more interested in checking her phone than in joining in the singing. Or maybe it was the way my son-in-law David kept making snide comments under his breath about how some people should stick to singing in the shower. I tried to brush off their negativity, tried to focus on the music and the meaning behind the words. But as we made our way down the street, my voice ringing out clear and true in the frosty air, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't until we reached the end of the block that I realized what it was. As I paused to catch my breath, I heard Jake lean over to Emily and whisper, "Grandpa's voice isn't what it used to be, is it? Maybe it's time for him to hang up the songbook." Emily giggled, her hand covering her mouth. "I know, right? I mean, I love him and all, but it's kind of embarrassing having him out here screeching like a dying cat." I felt my face flush with shame and hurt, my throat tightening with the effort of holding back my tears. Is that really what they thought of me? After all these years of sharing my love of music with them, of trying to bring a little bit of magic and wonder into their lives, this was how they repaid me? I wanted to say something, to defend myself and my passion, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stood there, feeling the weight of their judgment and mockery pressing down on me like a physical force. I was about to turn back, to head home and nurse my wounded pride in private, when I heard a sound that made my heart skip a beat. It was the sound of singing, but not just any singing. It was the sound of a choir, their voices blending together in perfect harmony, their melody soaring through the night like a benediction. At first, I thought I must be imagining things, that the stress and hurt of the evening had finally gotten to me. But as the sound grew louder, as the voices drew closer, I realized that this was no illusion. And then, as I watched in amazement, a group of people rounded the corner, their faces shining with joy and purpose. And at the front of the group, leading them like a general leading his troops, was a face I would have recognized anywhere. It was Mr. Peterson, my old choir director, the man who had first sparked my love of music all those years ago. And behind him, filing in like a procession of angels, were the members of my old high school choir, their voices lifted in a song that I knew by heart. Silent night, holy night, they sang, their voices ringing out clear and true in the frosty air. All is calm, all is bright. I felt my eyes fill with tears, my heart swelling with a mix of emotions too complex to name. And as they drew closer, as Mr. Peterson reached out and clasped my hand in his, I knew that this was no coincidence, no random act of kindness. This was a gift, a reminder of the power of music to bring people together, to heal old wounds and forge new bonds. And as I lifted my own voice to join in the song, I felt a sense of peace and belonging wash over me, a feeling that I had been missing for far too long. For in that moment, I was no longer just a retired old teacher, no longer just a grandfather or a father or a husband. I was a part of something greater, a part of a community that had always been there for me, even when I had forgotten it existed. And as the music swelled around us, as the choir's voices blended with my own, I knew that this was a moment I would never forget, a Christmas miracle that would stay with me for the rest of my days. As the final notes of Silent Night faded into the night sky, I found myself enveloped in a sea of hugs and handshakes, my old choir members surrounding me with love and warmth. Mr. Peterson stood at the center of it all, his eyes twinkling with mischief and joy. We couldn't let our favorite tenor spend Christmas Eve without a proper serenade, now could we? He said, his voice thick with emotion. When we heard that you were out caroling tonight, we knew we had to come and join in the fun. I shook my head in amazement, my heart overflowing with gratitude and love. But how did you know? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. How did you even find me? Mr. Peterson chuckled, his hand resting on my shoulder. You forget, my dear boy, that you're not the only one with a love for music in this town. When word got out that you were planning to go caroling, it spread like wildfire. And before we knew it, we had a whole choir's worth of people ready to come and surprise you. I felt my throat tighten with emotion, my eyes stinging with unshed tears, to think that all these people, all these friends and neighbors and former students had come together just to show their love and support for me. It was almost too much to bear. But even as I basked in the glow of their affection, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness as I glanced over at my family, standing off to the side with expressions ranging from confusion to annoyance. I'm sorry, I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to embarrass you all like this. I know my singing isn't what it used to be, and I understand if you'd rather not have me out here making a spectacle of myself. But to my surprise, it was Jake who spoke up first, his face flushed with shame and regret. No, Grandpa, he said, his voice trembling slightly. We're the ones who should be sorry. We never should have made fun of your singing like that. It was cruel and disrespectful, and we had no right to do it. Emily nodded, her own eyes filling with tears. He's right, Dad. We were so caught up in our own selfish thoughts and feelings that we forgot what really matters. We forgot how much your music means to you and how much joy it brings to everyone around you. David stepped forward, his hand outstretched in apology. I know I haven't always been the most supportive son-in-law, he said, his voice rough with emotion. But seeing all these people here tonight, seeing how much they love and admire you, it's made me realize just how lucky we are to have you in our lives. I felt my heart swell with love and forgiveness, my anger and hurt melting away like snow in the warmth of their words. And as I pulled them all into a tight embrace, my tears mingling with theirs, I knew that this was the true meaning of Christmas. Not the presents or the decorations or the fancy meals, but the love and the togetherness that bound us all together, the sense of community and belonging that could never be broken. And as we stood there, surrounded by the people who meant the most to us in the world, I knew that I had been given the greatest gift of all. The gift of family, of friendship, of a love that could weather any storm and emerge stronger and more beautiful than ever before. As the night wore on, we found ourselves gathered around the piano in my living room, hot cocoa steaming in our mugs and smiles on our faces. Mr. Peterson sat at the keys, his fingers flying over the ivories as he led us in song after song, our voices rising and falling in perfect harmony. And as I looked around at the faces of my loved ones, at the joy and the laughter and the love that filled every corner of the room, I knew that this was a moment I would cherish forever. A moment of pure, unadulterated happiness. A moment that reminded me of why I had fallen in love with music in the first place, not for the accolades or the applause, but for the way it brought people together, the way it could heal even the deepest of wounds and forge bonds that would last a lifetime. And as the final notes of Auld Lang Syne faded into the night, as we raised our glasses in a toast to the year that had passed and the one that was yet to come, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be, surrounded by the people I loved, doing the thing I loved most in the world. And in that moment, I was the richest man alive. The days and weeks that followed that magical Christmas Eve were filled with a newfound sense of joy and purpose. It was as if the music had awakened something deep within me, a passion and a drive that I had thought long lost to the passage of time. I found myself spending more and more time at the piano, my fingers dancing over the keys as I rediscovered the songs of my youth. And to my surprise and delight, I found that my voice was stronger and clearer than ever before, the years of disuse and neglect fallen away like a distant memory. But it wasn't just my own music that filled my days. Everywhere I went, it seemed, I was surrounded by the sounds of song and laughter, the very air itself alive with the spirit of the season. At the grocery store, I would find myself humming along with the carols playing over the loudspeaker, my feet tapping out the rhythm as I perused the aisles. At the post office, I would strike up conversations with strangers about their favorite holiday tunes, our shared love of music bridging the gap between generations and cultures. And at home, my family seemed to have caught the bug as well. Jake could often be found strumming away on his guitar, his face a mask of concentration as he worked to master a particularly tricky chord progression. Emily took to singing in the shower, her voice echoing through the house like a siren's call. And even David, who had always been more of a sports enthusiast than a music lover, could be caught tapping his foot in time to the beat when he thought no one was looking. It was as if the music had become a part of us, a vital and essential component of our daily lives. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I began to realize just how much I had missed it, how much I had been missing without even knowing it. But even as I reveled in this newfound sense of purpose and joy, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. It wasn't until I received a phone call from Mr. Peterson one crisp February morning that I realized what it was. "I have a proposition for you," he said, his voice crackling with excitement over the line. "The school board has just approved funding for a new music program, and I want you to be a part of it." I felt my heart skip a beat, my breath catching in my throat. "Me?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "But I'm retired, Mr. Peterson. I haven't taught in years." He chuckled, the sound warm and reassuring. "That's exactly why I want you, my boy. You have a wealth of experience and knowledge that these young students desperately need. And more than that, you have a passion for music that is simply unmatched." I hesitated, my mind racing with doubts and fears. Could I really do this? Could I really go back to teaching after all these years? But even as the question swirled in my head, I felt a flicker of excitement ignite in my chest. The thought of sharing my love of music with a new generation of students, of helping them to discover the same joy and passion that had sustained me throughout my life. It was too tempting to resist. "I'll do it," I said, my voice steady and strong. "I'll come back and teach." And so, with a sense of nervous anticipation and giddy excitement, I found myself back in the classroom, surrounded by the bright young faces of my new students. At first, it was a struggle, my rusty teaching skills and outdated knowledge showing through like cracks in a veneer. But as the weeks passed and the music began to flow, I found myself falling into a rhythm, my old instincts and habits coming back to me like long-lost friends. And as I watched my students blossom and grow, their voices rising in harmony and their eyes shining with the joy of discovery, I knew that I had made the right choice. For this was more than just a job, more than just a way to pass the time in my retirement years. This was a calling, a mission, a chance to make a difference in the lives of these young people and to share with them the gift that had been given to me so many years ago. And as the final notes of our first concert faded into the night, as the audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation and my students beamed with pride and accomplishment, I knew that I had found my true purpose in life. Not in the accolades or the applause, but in the simple joy of making music and sharing it with the world. And in that moment, I was the happiest man alive. As the months passed and the seasons changed, I found myself settling into a new rhythm of life, one that was filled with the joys and challenges of teaching, the laughter and the tears of my students, and the constant thrumming pulse of music that seemed to underscore everything we did. It wasn't always easy, of course. There were days when the stress and the pressure of the job seemed almost too much to bear, when the endless parade of rehearsals and performances and paperwork threatened to drown me in a sea of exhaustion and frustration. But even on the toughest of days, I found solace and strength in the music, in the way it could lift my spirits and soothe my soul like nothing else could. And I found inspiration in my students, in their boundless energy and enthusiasm, their unwavering commitment to their craft and their art. There was Lily, the shy and quiet girl who had always been too afraid to sing in front of others, but who blossomed like a flower under the gentle guidance of my teaching, her voice growing stronger and more confident with every passing day. There was Max, the troublemaker with a heart of gold, who had always struggled to find his place in the world, but who found a sense of purpose and belonging in the music, his rebellious streak channeled into a passion for the drums that was nothing short of extraordinary. And there was Sophie, the prodigy with a voice like an angel, who had always been destined for greatness, but who needed the support and encouragement of a teacher like me to help her reach her full potential, to soar to heights that even she had never dreamed possible. These were my students, my children, the ones who had come into my life at a time when I thought I had nothing left to give, but who had shown me that there was still so much joy and wonder and beauty to be found in the world if only I was willing to look for it. And as the year drew to a close and the final concert of the season approached, I found myself filled with a sense of pride and accomplishment that I had never known before, a feeling that I had truly made a difference in the lives of these young people, that I had helped to shape and mold them into the incredible musicians and human beings that they were meant to be. The night of the concert was a blur of nerves and excitement, of last-minute rehearsals and pre-show jitters. But as I stood backstage, watching my students take their places on the risers, their faces shining with anticipation and joy, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a feeling that everything was exactly as it was meant to be. And then the curtain rose, and the music began, and I was lost in a world of sound and color and emotion, my heart soaring with every note and every phrase. I watched as my students poured their hearts and souls into their performances, their voices rising in perfect harmony, their instruments blending together in a symphony of pure, unadulterated beauty. And as the final notes of the last song faded away, and the audience erupted into a thunderous standing ovation, I felt tears streaming down my face, tears of joy and gratitude and love for these incredible young people who had given me the greatest gift of all, the gift of music, of purpose, of a life well lived. As I stepped out onto the stage to take my final bow, my students surrounding me with hugs and tears and words of thanks, I knew that I had found my true calling, my reason for being. And I knew that no matter what the future might hold, no matter what challenges or obstacles might lie ahead, I would always have this moment, this perfect, shining example of what it means to be alive, to be human, to be a part of something greater than myself. And as I looked out into the audience and saw the faces of my family, of Mr. Peterson and my old choir members, of all the people who had supported and encouraged me along the way, I knew that I was truly blessed, that I had been given a second chance at life, a chance to make a difference in the world and to leave a legacy that would endure long after I was gone. For that is the true power of music, the true magic of the human spirit. It has the ability to heal and to inspire, to bring people together and to tear down walls, to remind us of the beauty and the wonder and the joy that is all around us if only we are willing to open our hearts and our minds to its call. And as I stood there on that stage, basking in the glow of the spotlights and the love of my students and my family, I knew that I had found my true home, my true purpose, my true self. And I knew that I would never let it go, not for anything in the world. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.